What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's time for Black Myth Wukong, starting off on the Steam Deck here. I'm sure I'll have the Legion Go and the Ally later on, but I want to get started here. I've been having a lot of fun with the game in about the first 4 hours or so, still kind of in the beginning though, and I want to check out performance and get something up here. Now, when you start the game, you do have an option that'll pop up where you can choose between the normal game or compatibility mode. I've jumped into both of these, and for me, I'm getting less drops to the lower frames in compatibility mode. So you might want to check that out and give that a try, and that's what I'll be showing in this video. So keep that in mind. Also, we'll go in and take a look at settings, but I am running 4 gigabytes of VRAM in my BIOS. I do find that to be better here for me on the deck. 800p, borderless, no VSync, no frame cap, no motion blur. And then when it comes to the graphic settings, we are going to use FSR. I'm going to be at about 75% here on the scale, though I typically will range anywhere from about 66 to 80. So whatever works better for you, but definitely just adjust that, but that will affect performance and also how the game looks. I'm not going to mess with frame generation, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then we're going to be on the low graphics preset for the most part. That's as low as we can go, and honestly, there's not a lot of room to play around with this game, so we're going to stick with that. But I do bump up texture quality to medium, and you can do anti-aliasing low or medium. I don't see a huge difference between them, but we'll take a look at it. I'll leave it to medium for most of the video, and that's pretty much going to get us going when it comes to the settings. Now into the game, starting with that 800p low medium, FSR 75%, AA is on medium, 4 gigs of VRAM. We're at 33 FPS sitting here, and if we switch over to low AA, still 33, not a huge difference in image quality, but I think some of the finer details later, you might notice the difference. So I'm going to leave it on medium, but do what you want with that. As far as frame gen in game, you can turn that on here, and then you're going to want to go into your performance settings, turn manual GPU clock on, and be at 1600. This will give you the best chance of using frame gen, but its performance really isn't good in this game, and it can be rough on Steam Deck from time to time anyways, but this game in particular, it's not great with or without VSync or any of that. And yeah, it feels a lot more choppy than without. So I'm not going to use any frame gen in this, but you can mess with that if you want to. But for me, it just looks better and feels better latency wise and stutter wise without any frame gen on. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's stick with these settings here that we've got, and we'll take a look at some combat. We'll run around this area of the woods, and for the most part, performance here is very playable. We are going to dip under 30 from time to time. And no matter what I do, we could lower the resolution scale more and stuff and maybe gain a little, but for the most part, there's not a lot of wiggle room with this game. It's just going to run how it's going to run. You're going to have to keep things fairly low other than what I showed you in the settings, but I thought it felt pretty good to play. There are times I can feel the slowdown, and it may get me on those like boss fights where you're trying to dodge and stuff. We'll have to see how that goes, but we will take a look at some boss fights here as well. But for the most part, I thought it was a pretty playable experience here on the Steam Deck. You don't know what's going to happen later on in the game. Hopefully it's not a Baldur's Gate 3 situation where Act 3 performance falls apart. But from what I'm hearing from people that have Steam Decks who are much farther than me, performance is pretty much the same, even in more dense areas with more enemies and stuff. So hopefully that pans out. I'll definitely do updated performance videos in the future and keep an eye on performance here for this game on the deck and other handhelds here on the channel. But yeah, I was having a good time here on the Steam Deck. I would say out of the 4.5 hours I initially put in, I think about 2.5 of those were on the Steam Deck, and the other parts were like on the Ally X and the Go. But I thought it was very playable, and also on the OLED, because I am testing on the OLED here, it looked really good as well. I wish they had 1610 support, but maybe they'll add that in later on. But for the most part, it was fine. Now, some of the boss fight stuff and having to dodge these attacks and everything, it wasn't perfect, but I thought it felt pretty good, like input latency wise, and just having the frames hang in there at least enough where I could do it. I thought it was pretty playable for the most part. And we'll take a look at another boss in this area too when we get a little farther along. Now, the temple area here too pretty much ran the same as other areas of the woods, and like I said, talking to other people, it seems like performance kind of hangs on after this area as well. So we'll just have to keep playing and see how it gets later on and do updated videos. But I do think for the most part, Black Myth Wukong is fairly playable here on the Steam Deck, and hopefully it will stay that way. There was over 1.5 million people in the game last I looked just on Steam. It's extremely popular right now, and I can see why. I'm having a blast learning the fights and leveling up and doing some of the grinding, and it really has been a decent enough experience here on the Steam Deck where I feel like I can at least play the game and I'm not too hindered where I'm gonna lose, and hopefully it'll stay that way on here. Alright guys, thanks a lot for coming and check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.